All right, so let's jump right into a true classic of marketing strategy, positioning. This book is an absolute game changer because it gives us a really simple but super powerful answer to a huge problem we all deal with every single day.
I mean, just think about it for a second. The second you open your eyes, you're just bombarded. You've got emails, texts, social media notifications, ads everywhere. We're all trying to get a message across, right? Whether you're selling a product, sharing an idea, or just trying to get noticed at work. So the real question is, how on earth do you break through all that noise?
Okay, to make this really concrete, let me just throw a number at you. 40,000. What is that? Well, that's roughly how many different products are in your average supermarket. 40,000 choices. All of them are basically screaming for your attention. And that's just the grocery store. Wild, right?
And that brings us to the core problem, the big idea in the book. The biggest obstacle to getting your message heard isn't a lack of information. Nope, it's the complete opposite. We live in what the authors call an over-communicated society. There is just way too much noise. And you know what our brains do to cope? They put up a shield. They just filter almost everything out.
So if our minds are blocking everything out, what's the solution? Well, this is where the book's big idea comes in. Positioning. Simply put, positioning is about how you stand out, not on a shelf, not in an ad, but in the mind of the person you're trying to reach. And that shift in focus, that is absolutely everything.
This really gets to the heart of it. Positioning isn't about what you do to your product. It's about what you do to the mind. You see, it's not about inventing something totally new. It's about working with the ideas and perceptions that are already there. It's not a fight over features. It's a fight over perception. It's all a psychological game. Okay, so if it's a psychological game, how do you win? What's the best strategy? It's actually incredibly simple. Be first. That's it. Getting into the mind first is way more important than having a better product. The brand that gets there first stakes a claim, and that advantage is huge, and often it's permanent. Let's try a quick test. You know this one. Who was the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic? Of course, Charles Lindbergh. Easy. Now, here's the real question. Who was the second person to do it? Right? You're drawing a blank. Almost nobody knows. His name was Burt Hankler. I'm sure he was a great pilot, but he's forgotten. Why? Because the mind just doesn't have much space for number two.
So how do our brains actually organize all this stuff? Well, the book gives us this amazing metaphor, a series of ladders in our mind. Think of each ladder as a product category, like one for rental cars, one for sodas, one for search engines. And on each rung of that ladder sits a brand.
Let's look at a classic example to see how this works. The rental car ladder. For years and years, who owned that top spot, the top rung? Hertz. They were number one, no question. And right below them on the second rung, Avis. And then, way down below, you had everybody else just scrambling for a spot. That hierarchy was locked in place inside people's heads.
So what could Avis possibly do? They couldn't just say, we're better than Hertz, nobody would believe them. So instead, they did something absolutely brilliant. They didn't fight their position, they embraced it. Their famous slogan basically said, hey, we get it, Hertz is on top, but that's exactly why you should choose us. When you're only number two, you have to try harder. They turned being the runner-up into their greatest strength.
And this teaches us a really critical lesson for anyone who's not the leader. You just can't go head-to-head with a giant like a Hertz or a Coca-Cola. Their position is like a fortress. Just shouting, we're better, is a recipe for failure. It almost never works. You've got to be smarter. You've got to get creative. So here's one strategy. Instead of trying to knock the leader off the top rung, you find an empty rung. You look for a hole, a gap in the customer's mind, and you fill it. Your goal isn't to take their spot. It's to create a new spot that you can own completely. And the perfect example of this is 7-Up. It's pure genius. Back then, the soda ladder was all about colas. You had Coke on top, Pepsi right below. So 7-Up didn't say we're a better cola. That would have been ridiculous. Instead, they created a whole new position for themselves, the uncola. Think about how smart that is. If you didn't want a cola, what did you drink? Bam. 7-Up just became the obvious answer by defining itself by what it wasn't. Okay, but what if you want to be more aggressive? There's an even more powerful strategy. It's called repositioning the competitor. Instead of just finding a new spot for yourself, you actively try to knock the leader down a peg. And the way you do it is by planting a new idea in people's minds, an idea that makes them question the leader they've always trusted. The masterclass in this strategy is Tylenol versus aspirin. For decades, aspirin was it. It was the king of pain relief. It owned the top of that ladder. Tylenol couldn't just come out and say, hey, we're a better pain reliever. So what did they do? They found aspirin's weak spot, the fact that for a lot of people, it could be pretty rough on the stomach.
And this was the knockout punch. Their famous headline wasn't about Tylenol at all. It was about aspirin. By saying this, they planted a tiny seed of doubt. They made people think, wait, maybe aspirin isn't for me. Maybe it's risky. And just like that, they repositioned the leader. Aspirin became the risky choice. And in that new opening, Tylenol swooped in to own the position of the safe, gentle alternative. Absolutely brilliant.
So as we bring this all together, it comes back to one central truth. In this crazy, over-communicated world we live in, objective reality kinda doesn't matter. What matters is perception. The only reality that counts in this game is the one that exists inside your customer's mind. And that means the single most important marketing decision you will ever make, whether it's for a product, a company, or heck, even your own career, isn't about what you do or how much you charge. It's about deciding what one specific position you want to own inside someone else's head. Everything, and I mean everything, flows from that one decision.
Which leaves us with one final and maybe pretty challenging question. Because this isn't just for big corporations. This is for you. When people think of you, your business, your work, what's the one word, the one idea that pops into their head? What ladder are you on? And more importantly, which rung do you own? Because in the battle for the mind, if you don't own a position, you're basically invisible.